Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hi, I hope you're doing well and you are ready for some Computer America. You're having a great day, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. So obviously, in the first part of the show, we generally have a guest, and that guest will be on to talk about their product. And hey, it'd be a lot of fun just to really dig in deep into that topic, whoever our guest may be. And then in the second part, computer and technology news, that part will stay the same, but instead of a guest today, we will be doing a special segment. And this segment, however long it takes, will be about how to fact check, spot fake news, if you will, how to kind of verify what you're reading is actually the truth. Because I've been noticing that even some correspondents that come on the show, they seem to be a little misinformed. I have seen many stories in the recent weeks, and really for quite a while now, that get just so much attention, and at the same time are really not deserving of it, because it's there's a lot of different kinds of misinformation out there, and being able to discern the difference between, something that is actually wrong, outright wrong, removed out of context, or time shifted, or things like that. It's all worth, really knowing the differences. And I think that, we do this behind the scenes every day here at Computer America. We try our best, and whenever we get it wrong, we fully admit that. But we try our best to, make sure that we're bringing you actual and real news. And, that just doesn't seem to be a priority in a lot of regards. So we have an entire segment dedicated to, trying to spot, avoid, and really, just kind of, if nothing else, you don't even have to do anything with it. You don't have to go report these people to, the Federal Communications Commission. You don't have to take up your pitchfork and light the torches and go outside and, mass riot over this. You just really should have this as your own personal kind of playbook. So everyone, computeramerica.com, before we get started, that's where you'll find everything. That's where you'll find everything that we talk about, including today's special segment. We'll have links to everything. And so that, hey, if you want to fact check us, you're more than welcome to. We can, we'll put it right up there for you. And there you'll also find reviews, topics. You'll find past shows, future shows, articles, podcasts, all in social media, of course. Find us on social media at Computer America. We should come right up. And hey, give us a follow, give us a like, and why don't we go ahead and get started? So this segment's going to be a little bit more freeform than some of our other segments, and I think that's a good place to start. I have, a number of guides, and some of them are going to be images that you can see if you're watching the video portion, although we're going to try to go through them as much as we can. And some of them are, the guides are a little bit more specific to different types of fact checking, but let's start with a good, kind of overview. And this is going to be from, let's see. So this publication is actually Harvard. If you've ever heard of them, harvard.edu. And it's talking about spotting fake news stories, which, hey, would be very relevant. And we'll have a couple of examples of each of these and how they can kind of run afoul of each other. And by the way, a lot of the stories that we're going to be using as examples, some of them were actually pulled from today, a couple from the past couple of weeks. I try to keep all of the examples as relevant and timely as possible. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these. Let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these examples. And let's start with this one, saying that, obviously, the first big question people have is that, well, why does fake news kind of go viral? And that's a very good point. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you need to check, to make sure that something is fake and not just a joke or something like that. But why do people make fake news? And there's a monetary incentive behind it. There may be some kind of narrative that they're trying to draw on the other side of it. I think a lot of it's going to be the ad revenue, that if they can get those eye-catching headlines, then so many people are going to be clicking. And when something goes viral, when something gets 1 million, 2 million views or hundreds of thousands of views in just simply a day, that can, and you can see why an industry is just kind of fueled and says, hey, we need to get the next viral story out there. What's the best lie we can come up with? And so that's why, fake news is kind of being created. There's a huge monetary incentive, let alone, any other political or geopolitical reasons behind the story. So let's also mention real quick that the Pew Research Center, they show that people under the age of 50 get half of their news online. And for those under 30, online news is twice as popular as TV news. So this is obviously something that verifying online social media, or even, let's face it, memes, making sure that the information portrayed in these is actually correct, can save you a lot of trouble and really the world at large. So let's go ahead and get started here. So they said that they have a couple of cases here that the article quotes, such as Pizzagate. If you don't know what that is, it's a really, really weird tale that involves child trafficking and a pizza parlor in DC that a gentleman went into waving a gun and claiming that he was going to save people, and he wanted to investigate, see the basement, even though there was no basement whatsoever. It's a very touchy subject, and I don't really want to linger on it too long, but it shows just how pervasive something like that could really get. That's by all accounts, a very, very fake, false, not true story actually led someone to a location and started demanding, to see the fake proof. So let's go ahead and start talking about a couple of steps to evaluate if something is actually true. The first one that Harvard lists here is vet the publisher's credibility. This is a big one, and we have a couple examples again of how this can kind of go awry. But they say that would the publishing site meet academic citation standards? And just because it's popular, and I think that's a big one. Just because something is popular doesn't mean that it's accurate. And that is, even though one story out of the entire website might be true or have an inkling of truth, you can look at some of the other stories that if they feel they can publish something that is just blatantly false and then try to switch over real quick into something that is mostly true, maybe that's not a very credible source to get your information from. The next one is, of course, the domain name, and that we have talked about this in the past when it comes to emails. Someone can say that they are from, insert website here.com, and instead of it being the actual .com, it could be at gmail.com, and it could just be, website at gmail.com, and it could be a trick, or it could be .co instead of .com. One instance that they use here, which has since been taken down, is abcnews.com.co. And I actually went and looked this up. It's actually it's actually a pretty interesting story. I had not heard about this one. I guess a lot of people were tricked by ABC News, abcnews.com.co, because ABC News, that's its own publication, and, a lot of people trust the credibility of ABC News. Well, they made a website that is abcnews.com.co, and really, when something is buried in all the tags in the story, all the stuff that comes after the website, it's very easy to overlook that extra.co. And when that happened, they also created a logo that looked a lot like, ABC News. They were publishing fake news stories. And, some of these included viral stories, debunk stories. Some of them also include the fact that they list the Westboro Baptist Church as their primary location. And with that being said, the owner of the site claimed that he made about $10,000 a month in a single month by publishing viral and fake stories for which people could kind of honestly mistake that they were coming from ABC News and not abcnews.com.co. Let's see. So, this Wikipedia article here has a couple of different examples of, just kind of where they go. And I want to make this, kind of clear going into this. Some of the stories are going to be political because politics have been so divisive, they have been so vitriolic that I think people will overlook some small mistakes. Like there was one, I believe, from a comedian who made up a quote, and this was she actually redistributed a social media post that had been dead for a little while, but she brought it back up, put the quote in there, and at the end she said, "No, this is not an actual quote, but it doesn't really matter." And it was about Mitch McConnell, I think, for U.S. politics. And so it happens on the left and the right. I'm really not trying to take a political side to this. Both sides do it. And again, I'm just trying to get the message out there that you need to check your sources. And again, you need to be able to spot a fake domain name. As we said, an example, abcnews.com.co, which luckily, by the way, does not exist anymore. There's another one that, of course, you can read the About Us, and in the About Us, on many publications, if it's something that you're not really familiar with, you can see mission statement, leadership, you can see different insights into the publisher, and you can, of course, confirm many satirical sites will actually list that they are satire. Think The Onion. There's a Canadian one that is currently slipping my mind. To give an example, okay, here's one. An example of this would be WTOE, 5 News. And if you've never heard of this, well, they aren't local because they don't actually exist. They're a fake news organization that is, as they say, directed to, I guess, dog owners. And of course, right there on, right there on their homepage, they have like how to remove pet hair from your car, things like that. How to keep your dog from being bored, pretty innocent stories. But then right below that, essential oils for getting better sleep. Not really anything about a dog. And, well, there you have it. They will publish anything that they see fit. And if you go to the About Us, right there at the top, you can see right here, the only thing they have other than a bunch of social media links is, of course, WTOE 5 News is a fantasy news website for pet owners. That is their entire mission statement. And don't get me wrong, that should be obvious. But at the same time, nothing would really lead you to assume that, well, maybe a smaller publication, maybe like a local news site, they aren't very well developed. But yeah, some of their stuff has gone viral before. So be sure to check and make sure that, especially if you have never heard of the publication before, don't just assume because you somehow managed to land on it, you're at a credible site. So there you go. There's an example. So going on here, who is the author? And of course, sometimes people will post things under satirical authors. Many authors. Well, if they aren't known in the industry and they don't have any kind of credentials, or they don't have if it's not easy to see that, they've been writing for this publication for this many years, they've been with this organization for this many years, odds are, hey, a lot of people can make up and lie about their past experiences. And, well, check the author. They have to be credible. And by the way, you should definitely avoid, anyone with an @Gmail address. It's something that is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and something that I definitely keep an eye out for is @Gmail addresses whenever people try to, push something that is legitimate. I mean, I get so many messages a day from fake quote unquote advertisers that are from, let's say something like the family outreach services @gmail.com or something like that, something very innocuous, very, very general. And the @Gmail kind of gives it away that if they were in fact a legitimate business, or a legitimate author in this case, it doesn't take much to get, to not have an @Gmail address. It's not hard. It's not complicated. Maybe one day we might even do a how-to guide over, some of these smaller things for smaller businesses. But especially if they claim to work for a larger organization, there's no excuse whatsoever to be sending anything under an @Gmail address. So be cautious of that. Next one, and this is again in an effort to spot fake news, false information, things like that. Pay attention to quality and timeliness. So quality, I can't really say much. I think that many people who write articles online, a lot of them are very bad at what they do. That's not really the point. People can make mistakes. They can make grammatical errors. They can make typos. Yeah, good proofreading and good grammar is definitely a mark of good publishing. If you're going to take the time to put it into an article, or you're going to print it on paper, yeah, they're going to have people read over those articles and make sure that they are of, correct and of quality. Online journalism, though, let's face it, we are in the age of online journalism. Things get uploaded very, very quickly. There's not a lot of thought, because if something is unfortunately incorrect, hey, you can go back and edit it. We are again in the age of, you can go back and fix it later. So quality is definitely something you should pay attention to, but it doesn't mean everything. The second one, though, the story. Is it current or recycled? And I've seen this happen on websites such as Reddit. You'll see it happen in social media, where these stories from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago will pop back up. And, they have very relevant headlines that will, especially if the article goes viral, they'll catch your attention. But then when you go back to the article, you may look at it and it will say, you're in 2020. The article was written in 2016. Still, the information is all correct. Everything's there. It's well sourced. It's published in a reputable journal. But at the same time, that's false information. It gives you the illusion that something has just happened, or trying to say that this is an urgent issue, but it happened years ago, and any fallout that could have happened from it, well, that's it's already happened. So that's another type of false information, is when it's just not timely. It may meet all the other criteria, but it's just old, and that's something to be careful of. Definitely seen that. So that's number 2. Number 3, check the sources and citations. I have the perfect example for this one, and let's see if I can find it right here. Let's see. And checking sources and citations is probably one of the first things that we do here for Computer America. A lot of the publications that we enjoy, because they do a good job of aggregating sites, aggregating news. I have nothing against these websites that kind of pick up stories, condense them, and spit them back out for their readers, because some of the primary sources can be very, heady. They can write very, very long, or, they can add their own personal twist to it. You may like the authors. There's nothing wrong with secondary sources. It's just making sure that your primary sources, the people who are actually making the news, that information has to be correct. And one example of that, I gotta say, let's see. I had just, okay. Well, there's this one, and we'll cover that in just a second. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this is from a publication called Poynter. Poynter is actually a, kind of a conglomerate between a number of sources. They work with PolitiFact, MediaWise, International Fact Checking, and News University. So Poynter, brings together all that fact checking. Anyways, they have this one here. This is an example of where fact checking and source checking just didn't really happen. And you may have seen this on the news, where the Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, his coronavirus test showed positive, and that's what the story was reported. And of course, there are pictures of him with President Trump, Vice President Pence, shaking hands all over Mar-a-Lago, and I definitely remember just a couple of days ago that story being everywhere. Well, check this out. They said that between 9 and 11 a.m. Eastern, The Guardian in the United Kingdom, CNA Taiwan, and Fox News United States reported that the Brazilian president, Bolsonaro, had tested positive for the 2019 coronavirus, and reminded audiences that he had met with the U.S. president in Florida earlier in the week. As in, quite potentially, this is the president coming in contact with someone who has coronavirus. Now, here's the thing. That was the original article. It was based on a single report. Let's see. It was based on a single story, a note published by columnist Leandro Mazzini at Odia, and Odia is the publication, is a very well-known Rio de Janeiro-based newspaper. They said that, he had the headline, meaning that Bolsonaro tested positive on his first analysis in Portuguese. But of course, from there, The Guardian picked it up, and then every other news organization does what a lot do. In this day and age, they don't fact check. They don't go and check sources. They just pick it up and they run with it. And I know that I said, The Guardian, Fox News, CNA, they all picked it up. But of course, many, many, many other news organizations from either political spectrum picked it up as well, and just took it as gospel, even though it was one person who, by the way, just hours later, the president and his family released a statement. They released a statement on social media saying that it's not true. He has tested negative during the test. And so now you have this issue where the life of the story that has already started to go viral, been reported on multiple news stations, now has to compete against the truth. And the truth is just not that interesting. It's not like it's not like these news organizations are going to, at best they're going to edit at the bottom and say, oh, hey, by the way, this isn't true. Or B, they're going to take down the post. Or C, they're going to do nothing. They're going to move on to the next story. And all of this happened over the course of just a couple hours. And that's, we saw it here on the 6 o'clock news. We saw it, reported everywhere that the president had potentially interacted with someone who was COVID-19 infectious, even though he wasn't. So there you go. The official, and as you said before, the official Facebook and Twitter page of the president denied the confirmation, said the test results were negative, and of course, you can see their live coverage. So, there you go. So yeah, there's one example of how checking your sources, and here's another little part of this whole problem, is that this is an example where I think that the average reader isn't going to be savvy enough to do this. This is where, and you know, I just realized that I just kind of set myself on a little tangent here, but the average reader is probably going to trust their news organizations when enough of them print the same story. It's taken as fact, you know, of course. Who doesn't trust, you know, thousands of people in, you know, in an industry that is meant to report the news? And even if the individual went through all the sources, dug all the way down to a singular columnist in Portuguese, and they tried to, I don't know, either quickly learn Portuguese or run it through a Google translator, would they be savvy enough to really understand that, hey, there's a problem? No. So I can understand if the individual really fell for this, but this is a, you know, this is something that you should definitely take note of, that just because you read something in a, you know, in a published article from a reputable source as you see it, doesn't mean it's 100% perfect reporting every single time. So with that being said, going back to the original, you know, 4 different steps, again, we're talking about the 4 different things you should pay attention to when vetting sources for misinformation and fake news. The next one is the information available on other sites. We just mentioned that also can run into a problem, but if only one site is reporting something and none of the others are matching it, you know, this one, you may have to go with majority rules and don't just trust that one outlier and that confirms your bias. And also they mentioned, can you perform reverse searches for sources and images? You know, do those pop up in other places? And then the last one is, of course, ask the pros. Be willing to go out there and, you know, if something just doesn't sit right with you, yeah, you know, do your own detective work. Go out there and search for these stories on your own. So that's the first little guide. We have a number of guides, and again, we'll be including all of these in the show notes. For anyone out there just joining us, welcome into Computer America. Just want to catch you up to speed. This entire first segment is going to be dedicated to how to spot fake news, fake articles, fake stories, and I thought, again, this would be relevant because we've seen a lot of this either from stories from our correspondents or even on top of that, this whole coronavirus thing that has just taken the world, you know, in its grasp. There's a lot of really bad information out there about the coronavirus. So being able to spot good information and bad information is very, very important. So with that being said, let's go ahead and continue on to our next guide here. And and by the way, again, we have some tools and things like that. Let's go ahead and talk about, let's see, not this one in particular. I think it was this one that I really liked. Yeah. So this is again from Poynter, poynter.org, fact checking if you like to check them out. But first one, so first step that they have, and they have a number of steps here. First step, use technology to turbo power fact checking. So obviously there's a lot of tools when you use technology. These can include anything from just a basic Google search. You could do reverse image searches to see where an image is actually from. One thing that actually comes to mind for that is that people will release videos and photos of unrelated events, including, you know, an example of, I think there was one that was like an example of like it was like a wedding in the Middle East, and people were all happy. They were dancing. They were, you know, it was a very festive event, and someone simply took the video, which obviously for an American audience, they wouldn't understand, you know, anything that's happening there other than, you know, people of Middle Eastern descent dancing around. And they put it with a new headline, you know, here they are celebrating this horrible event or this tragedy, this mass shooting, this, you know, whatever. And the video then goes viral. The video itself was not edited whatsoever. And, you know, you could find other sources for it. But if you saw the other sources, it would completely contradict what made it go viral in the first place. It's very, very important to do your own fact checking. They also mentioned measuring the impact of fact checkers. No, I'm sorry. This is actually, kind of their mission statement and, kind of what they're working on here. But, okay. So with that being said, let's see. So I had another article here that I wanted to do. I had these all lined up and now they're out of order. Let's see. Okay, here it is. I apologize. So factcheck.org. There we go. Misinformation is not getting confused. There's a very big difference. So how to spot fake news. This happened back in 2016 in this article, but it's still very relevant today. Consider the source. We mentioned that. And a number of their examples that they give, we also gave. Another one is read beyond the headline. This one was particularly on display when it came to, let's see. There wasn't, oh yeah. Here we go. You may recall the story just from 3 days ago, and it was talking about Whole Foods. And the article that went viral was richest man in the world asked minimum wage workers or Whole Food employees, whatever the title was, to donate their vacation time. Obviously with the coronavirus going around, people are starting to miss work. If they get sick, they have to call in. And if they are sick for long enough, due to a 2-week quarantine in certain areas, people could actually donate their vacation time to other people in need and other employees in need. So the headline, richest person asked some of the most in need people to donate to, kind of help people. That headline rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It got everyone's attention. It received, it got tens of thousands of upvotes on Reddit. I saw it on social media. I saw it everywhere that, Jeff Bezos, what a bad guy. And by bad guy, they were actually using words that I just can't say, but you get the drift. So here's the thing. Jeff Bezos actually didn't do that. And what people are actually upset about is actually not that big a deal, because other industries, other companies within the industry, especially when it comes to, places like Whole Foods, Home Depot, so many other large organizations, they already have systems in place where you're allowed to donate your time off and give it to other workers in need as a form of, donation. And it's something that's not Whole Foods, it's not something that they came up with on the spot. This is an industry standard. Many, many, many places do this. And on top of that, again, once you read past the headline, did Jeff Bezos really ask them to do that? But no, it was, it was the CEO, John Mackey of Whole Foods. And out there, he wrote an email saying that for employees who test positive, the CEO emails offers 2 weeks paid time off plus unlimited unpaid time off for all of March. And they can give it their team members who have medical emergencies, can receive donated PTO hours, not only from team members from their location, but from team members all across the country. And by team members, they mean other employees of, Whole Foods. Normally, this would be a very touching sentiment. If some kind of localized tragedy were to happen, let's say tornado, hurricane, forest fire, something like that happened in a place, people from all over the country could, who work for the organization could donate their PTO, and, it would be seen as a good thing. Of course, we're in a global crisis with the coronavirus. So it was seen as a way for the super rich to ask the super poor to give up more than their fair share. Again, not Jeff Bezos. It was not, it was not something just completely revolutionary that they just came up with. No, these are standard practices, and it was not as rage-inducing, I guess. The feelings from the title of the article were not backed up by the content of the article, but that doesn't matter. Headlines mean everything. So there you go. It's definitely worth reading beyond just the headline. Especially, hey, if you take the time to spit it back out, if you take the time to post on social media or talk about it with a friend, you can at least take the time to get the full story and the full context, even if the headline proves to be completely true. Go into the article, just read the article and check a source or two. It's going to save you a lot of headache. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this next one here. Again, we're talking about how to spot fake news from factcheck.org. And one of them that they have here should be kind of obvious. Is it a joke? There's an entire subreddit dedicated to exactly this. I'm sure that a lot of people have run across this. It's called Eating the Onion. The Onion being one of the most popular satirical news publications out there in the industry. And eating the onion simply means that, well, you took the bait, that you believe a satirical story and you took it as, well, truth. It happens all the time. Don't think that you are going to be immune to it. Don't think that you are going to catch it every single time. But yeah, it's worth just making sure that, especially checking the sources, make sure that it's, make sure that it's not satirical if you're taking it as true. So, and they even give a couple of examples here in the, in the article, talking about, well, is it some kind of joke? So there you go. Let's see. So check the date. We already talked about what's the support. They also mentioned that this is an important part of it, saying that many times these bogus stories will cite official or official sounding sources, but once you look into it, the source doesn't back up the claim, which is, again, just kind of, I could say that something completely ridiculous, and then I could cite the Library of Congress as my official source for my making this outlandish claim. And then, of course, the Library of Congress would have nothing to do with supporting my claim or even having any kind of proof of my claim. It doesn't matter. Make sure that the sources are, of course, relevant. First of all, that they exist, and second of all, that they're also relevant. So there you go. Let's see. And then, of course, two more. Check your biases. This is something that happens all the time. And it's unfortunate because it's not easy. We develop biases because over time, it helps us kind of make that immediate gut reaction. If I have a bias towards something, if I think that PC is better than Apple, I'm just going to take, maybe sales numbers as, PC, and, there may be conflicting sales reports out there that PC sold more than Apple, but at the same time, Apple had, better usage rates or better customer reviews. And I'm just going to say, PC is way outselling and people like them better because they're outselling better, even though that may not be the case. Bias happens all the time. Be sure that if you feel like you have a bias, don't just dismiss something just because it doesn't fit into that bias. And it goes the other way too. Don't immediately trust or believe something just because it confirms, again, what it is that you believe. So, and then the last one is, of course, check between factcheck.org, Snopes, the Washington Post, Fact Checker, PolitiFact.com. Check a lot of these different sources to make sure that what it is that you're reading is actually the truth. So there you go. Let's see. So this segment of the show is going a little bit long, but that's perfectly okay. Want to get all my thoughts out there. There's another article here from the Pratt Library on how to spot fake news, and looks like it's really, and of course, down here at the bottom, we'll include it in the show notes, but we won't go over it here on the show. They also include something called the CRAP test. CRAP being the CRAAP test. And what that means is, well, you kind of check it for, Here it is. You check it for currency, as in the timeliness of the information, the relevancy, the importance of the information, the authority, the source of the information, the accuracy, the reliability of the truth, and the truthfulness of the information, and the purpose, the reason why the information exists. So there you go. Make sure it passes the crap test. And yeah, we'll leave this in the show notes because there are a lot of really good questions that if you're really on the fence about something, you can ask all of these questions, such as, do you know the person behind the presentation of the material? Does the organization have an About Us link? Is this a first-hand account, or has this been seen through the eyes of an editor? Things like that. Many, many questions that you can ask to better discern if something is worth checking out. So something to bring this kind of full circle, the reason why this whole thing exists, and it has to do with 7 ways to avoid misinformation during the coronavirus pandemic. And they have a nice little handy dandy kind of visual aid here. And this is something that, we're going to apply to the coronavirus right now, but for any kind of massive event like this, maybe being a little bit more proactive about it could help a lot in, kind of how you see what's happening in the news. First, learn the basics of the disease. What are the symptoms? How does it spread? What diseases is it similar to? The more that you know from independent sources that you go out and you find and you trust, instead of sitting there and waiting for information to come to you, the better off you will be. Be wary of claims about the epidemic sources. There have been some who are saying that, even here on the show, just a couple of days ago, I think Nathan Evans implied that the coronavirus was made in some kind of laboratory as a Frankenstein of other diseases. Not true. So, be wary about the claims about the epidemic sources. Verify images and videos related to the epidemic. Make sure that just like the Middle Eastern wedding that was happening that was attributed to different circumstances, same thing can happen with the epidemic. I mean, a person lying in a hospital bed looks like a person lying in a hospital bed in any situation. So make sure you verify that. Double check case numbers, death tolls, and fatality rates. Just because someone claims that there are, just because there's an astronomical increase in death rates or case number rates, doesn't mean that it's actually true. Hey, sometimes people just look for the easy clicks by having bigger numbers. Beware of attempts to downplay or amplify the threat of the disease. That's a very good one. Don't trust people who say, oh, it's nothing, and don't trust people that say, oh, this is the end of the world. Strike some kind of middle ground. This is a story. A lot of people are reporting on this, but hey, society continues to exist. So strike a middle ground. Don't share prevention or treatment methods without consulting official sources. This can happen. Oh, actually, I do have an example of this. This is actually I have 2 of them. Here we go. So I actually recall, kind of what happened on this one. And again, this is in regards to don't share about treatment methods or things like that. And hand sanitizer. Contrary to false reports, sanitizer is helpful against coronavirus. This is from Fact Check. This just came out a couple of days ago, and you can see a couple of images here that are spread through social media. And they said that some on social media have wrongly claimed that hand sanitizers won't help. This surfaced with a March 1st tweet that was captured in a screenshot. There we go, which have since circulated on Facebook. And the Twitter users, a self-identified scientist, which are not the best scientists. Scientists, they really aren't self-certified. They're kind of they go to organizations to get accredited. But there you go. They argue that because hand sanitizer is antibacterial and the coronavirus is, well, a virus, it will do nothing for the coronavirus. And actually, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention instructs people to use hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available, saying that as long as the hand sanitizer is alcohol-based and contains at least 60% alcohol, well, hey, you're going to be good to go. Many experts have agreed that hand sanitizers work because the alcohol, often ethanol or isopropyl alcohol, disrupts the outer membrane layer and, well, destroys the virus particles. So that's an example of, hey, don't just trust these random viral pictures saying that, well, antibacterial soap or hand sanitizer won't work because it's a virus, not a bacterial. Yeah, careful about that. Another example of this, and I think, let's see. No, I don't feel like going through that one. There are a number, and I'm going to throw up a couple more sources here, and we'll talk about them real quick. But let's see, the last one on this list here, about 7 ways to avoid misinformation about the pandemic, saying that look for what's still unknown. If the disease is new, scientists will be working to learn more about the spread and who is at risk. Avoid falling for alternative explanations. So that one, example of that would be, and this would be Twitter taking down, check this one out. The one, the only, John McAfee actually manages to get himself roped into all this. And he released a tweet that has since been deleted, although, of course, thanks to a little Twitter archive tool, he claimed that black people could not contract the coronavirus because it was a quote-unquote Asian virus. Very racist thing to say, overall. It's horrible that he said that. But, yeah, it's still early. It's still early in the disease. There's only a couple, there's only a couple thousand cases in most countries, and the people who actually get them are going to be in different parts of the community. And, hey, we just don't have the numbers to really draw any kind of conclusion, but it's safe to assume that, it doesn't really check for ethnicity before a virus actually infects a human. It just will. So that's someone who, obviously the virus starting in Asia, burning its way through the Southeast Asian countries, trying to just kind of outright say, oh, this is an Asian person's disease. Every other ethnicity doesn't have to worry about this. Not the case whatsoever. And they have a couple of others, other tweets here that are pretty egregious on their own. So there you go. So, hey, and that just happened today, by the way, if you're looking for up-to-date examples. Let's see. These other examples that I didn't get to use, and by the way, we'll include this little PowerPoint presentation, although it's more just a single sheet here. It's a nice little visual guide on how to check sources and how to check if something is accurate. Okay, so with that being said, some of the other examples I didn't get to use because I probably overlooked them. Here's one: divorce rate spikes across China after a couple spend too much time together during coronavirus home quarantine. That's something that officials have said that one office saw over 300 couples applying for divorce in at least 3 weeks. This was an example. I mean, this is a story that was just reported today, just a couple of hours ago. It's still probably in the middle of, kind of making its rounds as it will. But I just want to say that I tried to find the source on this, and it was one official that said that, they had 14 divorces in a single day where normally they would have like 3. But at the same time, they said that divorce rates spike after college entrance exams and after something called like the Spring Festival or something like that. Said that this time of year, it's pretty common actually for divorce rates to spike. And they only talked about a couple of divorce, I guess in Asia, they have like their own like little departments, government departments. Um, that they would have their own little departments that deal with divorce. A lot of the people had to be quarantined, and so they're backed up, kind of logistically on divorces, because people have to come in, they have to kind of review their case and go through the whole divorce proceeding in an office that has been shut down for the past couple of months. And so now that's where you're seeing a spike in the divorce offices. Not even that people are so sick of each other, but that some people have claimed that it's just that underlying issues are more prevalent when you're stuck with someone for a month. So it's not the disease or the quarantine itself, but other issues. There's the fact that these offices were closed down, but this is an example of reading past the headline and seeing the actual information. And as B Girl in the chat room just mentioned, if you're looking for a silver lining, there will probably be a lot more babies, rather than divorces due to the quarantine. So there you go. Okay, so there's that. There's one article that is an example of just, again, kind of reading past the headline. Some of these other ones, let's see. So I think I have like 3 more I didn't use. Another type of fake information, false news, or fake news, was an example of Nancy Pelosi. This got a lot of headlines, and it wasn't even like it wasn't even like a deep fake or any kind of high technical expertise, but simply it was an interview during the 2019 Ideas Conference where someone slowed the video down by like 0.25. And it caused the way that Nancy Pelosi speaks, as she was, in thought trying to articulate herself. Some people thought it made her look drunk. And that's an example of a video that is definitely doctored, it's definitely fake, but it doesn't actually change any of the words or anything, too much out of context. It's slowed down just that little bit, and it made such a big story. Let's see. So here's another just example from today, saying that there's a viral coronavirus rumor about Trump issuing a national lockdown, and it's fake. So yeah, there's a lot of people have tried to disprove this, and I don't know how it got started, but there's another example today of no, there's no national lockdown announced as of yet for the United States. So there you go. Oh, actually, and one last one. We'll end on kind of like a high note, kind of like a funny note. So many people have kind of quoted this at me that I feel I felt this wasn't the case, and this kind of brings up a sentiment so many people have, is that people are dumb. That is an unfortunate sentiment that people have about one another. That that Americans in general are stupid, they're not very well informed, that they will believe just about anything, and nothing showed that more than a fake quote-unquote study that said that Americans were refusing to drink Corona, the beer, due to the fact that the coronavirus had a similar name. So sales of the Corona beer were taking a hit. That was shared so many times across Facebook and Twitter and the like. And people were all like, how could they make this, how could they make this mistake? It is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. And yet they went ahead and spread it themselves. And then when you look at it, well, hey, they said that Corona's producer, who is Constellation Brands, says that U.S. sales are up in the early part of the year, and the company doesn't have much exposure to international markets, such as China, which have suffered a greater impact from the disease. And, well, there you go. They have not suffered any kind of sale downturn simply because they share a name with a disease that happens to be going around. Yeah, and they also mentioned that the survey about the Mexican-based lager was released February 27th by 5W Public Relations and picked up by several news outlets. And the New York-based public relations firm said it conducted phone interviews with 737 beer drinkers and found that 38% would not buy Corona under any circumstances. But the company did not publicize the survey question or state why more than a third of those surveyed would not buy the beer. They just simply asked the question and then they put out a number, and for all we know, the number completely fake as well. Yeah, so they said that among those who said that they usually drink Corona, only 4% said that they would stop drinking Corona, but 14% said that they wouldn't order Corona in a public venue. So, yeah, that was an example of a story that definitely went viral, and just didn't really have a lot of merit to it. So with that being said, we have like 5 minutes left and we have a lot of news. We'll cover a lot of the news that we have saved for today. We'll cover it tomorrow and make this whole show dedicated to it. One last thing I wanted to share, and it's mentioned before, deepfakes, the idea that a website or someone will put out a video that is fake, doctored, edited, and how do we believe anything more? In an age where you can edit video to make it look just so convincing, how do you discern what's true, what's fake? Well, one of my favorites is there's a guide here from Africa Check, and it's obviously because a lot of different videos have been circulating around Africa that depict certain things. So, hey, they need it more than anyone else, but I think everyone can definitely take a notice. They said that how can you spot a digitally altered or crudely created video? First things first is save a copy of the video so that even if they replace the video or further edit it, you will have a copy of the original video, and you can use a tool called Video Vault if you'd like to do that. Search to see if there's an untampered copy of the video available online. Do a reverse image search of screenshots of the video, or search for keywords describing the event. Compare versions of the video from a trusted source to the video that you're trying to verify. Reverse image search, which anyone who does not know what that is, you can simply go to Google search, drag and drop. I think you go to Google, drag and drop your image into the search bar, and it will then try to match images to your image. Pretty easy. Next one, check whether the video's playback speed has been manipulated. Use free online tools like Capwing to slow down or speed up the video until the audio sounds normal. Compare the versions of the video you think is being manipulated. We just talked about that with the Nancy Pelosi video at the IDEA conference 2019. You can definitely expect a lot more of those coming out. Look for jumps in the video or clumsy transitions where something has been added or deleted. You can do this by moving through single frames of a video. So this is obvious where, if they want to take out something in the middle, at that point, take something out of context, it's, definitely take note of that. We talked about videos being shared out of context, deepfakes. Deepfakes are something you really need to pay attention to. And there's actually another article that we'll include in the show notes where you can use a tool. And it's a tool, let's see, so the site Forensically has similar features, but be careful, such tools aren't always conclusive. And this one, they also use InVid, which is VID, INVID. It's a verification plugin that can upload screen grabs of videos. And then you can see a video here of what looks like a group of students tearing up the American Constitution, and then you can see a heat map where the darker spot, kind of like a heat map, the brighter areas show what kind of matches the video, and then the darker area, which here shows where the Constitution would be in the video. nice big dark spot. And that means that that just is out of place. It's probably not, it's probably fake. It's probably not true what it is being shown in the video. And you have a number of tools here that you can do this. And again, we'll include all those in the show notes. So there's the deepfake. You can also search for a transcript of the speech compared to the video that you are checking. Rely on trusted sources. Deepfake work best with short videos because of the time and skill it takes to make longer ones. So be very wary of brief video clips. And I would say anything up to about 30 seconds. Those are the easiest to edit and really the quickest to get out there. And the last one, there are visual cues and deepfakes that are often easy to spot if you know what to look for. They include weird looking faces and bad lip syncing. Some of the deepfakes that I've seen, you can see, kind of dodging burning tools on the sides of people's faces where they try to overlay people's faces onto an image. If you look kind of where the hairline, meets the face, kind of like in front of the ears and down the jaw and things like that. There's usually some smudging that can happen there, and you should definitely take note of that. So everyone, that's about all the time I have. That took longer than expected. We have a lot of computer technology news. We'll cover it tomorrow here on the program. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Thank you so much, and hey, we'll catch you next time. Have a great show. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.